Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Welcome to Dharma for Kids. I'm going to tell you a story that the Buddha told a long time ago about some birds called quails. So before we start the story, let's do a little meditation by closing our eyes and sitting up nice and tall, relaxing our shoulders by letting our arms feel heavy, and just focus on breathing in and breathing out. Noticing how it feels when you breathe in the nose and when you breathe out from the nose. Breathing in and breathing out. And now notice how your stomach moves out as you breathe in, and it goes back in as you breathe out. Just notice the stomach moving with each breath. And now open your eyes, and we'll start with a question. When someone does something that annoys you, do you ever shout at him or say unpleasant words? And now we'll start our story. It's called The Hunter and the Quails. There was once an old quail, a beautiful elderly bird with silver-color feathers and a plump chest. He lived with his huge family and many friends in a huge flock of quails. In the same area lived a quail hunter. He could make a quail call, which is a sound like a quail in distress. When he made that sound, all the quails in the area would rush over to him, thinking that a quail nearby needed their help. But then he would throw a big net over them to capture them and sell them for people to eat. The old quail had the responsibility to keep his flock safe. He knew about the hunter and the way the hunter planned to destroy his family and friends with that net. The old quail thought to himself, I must make a plan to save my flock. So he called his family and friends and had a meeting. He said, You need to know that there's a great danger. There is a hunter who wants to trap us in a net, kill us, and sell us as quail meat for people to eat. All the quails were shocked and upset, and they murmured among themselves. But the old quail continued, I have a plan that can save us. When the hunter covers us with a net, we must each raise our neck at the same time. Then we must all fly away and drop the net on a thorn bush so we can all escape. The old quail's family and friends all enthusiastically agreed. The next day the hunter went out with his net and made the sound of a quail in distress. The flock immediately flew over toward the hunter because they naturally want to help their friends in distress. The hunter threw the net, which landed on top of many of the quails. But they remembered the old quail's plan, and they immediately stretched their necks up toward the sky, which lifted up the net a little, freeing their wings to fly. Then they suddenly flew up with the net over them, and then, all at once, they turned, dropping the net onto a thorn bush. Their plan worked. They escaped the hunter and flew far away. The hunter shook his head in disbelief and went home. And when he got home, his wife, seeing him arrive empty-handed, was upset. She said, What are you doing? How can you come home with no birds? Get back out there and get those birds. When the hunter tried to tell her what happened, she did not believe him, and she accused him of lying and being lazy. The hunter said, Please be patient. The birds all work together this time, but I know how family members are. They're always having disagreements and bickering and arguing. So, while they're bickering, I will trap them and bring them home. We have to be patient. Over the next several days, the hunter went out and made the quails' distress call. And they flew over toward the hunter, who threw the net on them. But each time they raised up their heads and flew up with the net, dropping it on a thorn bush. The hunter was patient, and every day he tried again, but he could not catch the quails. Then one day, when the quails were eating, one quail stepped on another quail's head by accident. The quail who felt a sharp claw on his head made a loud squawking noise. Ow! Stop! scolding the other quail loudly. The other quail quickly removed his foot and pleaded, "Oh, I'm sorry. Please don't be angry at me. It was an accident." The other quail was in an irritated mood, and he felt very annoyed that someone would step on his head. He squawked louder, "You are always so clumsy. You don't look where you're going." The other quail tried to calm him, saying, "I'm so sorry," but he wouldn't listen. He continued scolding, "I still have a bruise where you bumped me yesterday. You don't care about anyone else. You're just trying to get all the food. Go away. You're so obnoxious. You should be more considerate." The old quail heard all the noise. He thought, "This fighting is no good. It will lead to danger. If the quails are having disagreements, they won't cooperate to raise up the net to escape." Just then he saw the hunter coming, and he called out to his flock, "Everyone fly away! Escape!" The hunter made the quail distress call. Many of the quails flew away when they heard the old quail's command. But the quail who stepped on the other's head and the quail who was scolding him were not paying attention. They were only thinking about scolding each other and about how bad the other was, and they bickered even more, upsetting and irritating the other quails around them. The hunter threw the net and trapped them. One of the quails angrily said, "I'm not going to hold up the net for you." Another quail shouted, "Why should I help any of you?" Then the hunter quickly grabbed the net with the quails in it, took them home, and he and his wife cooked a big meal of quail meat. And that's the end of our story. Okay, now I want to ask you some questions. The first question is, what did the old quail teach them to do to escape the hunter? Together to raise up their necks and fly away with the net and then drop it on a thorn bush, right? The second question is, what did the quail do when the other quail stepped on his head? He made a loud noise and scolded the other. And the third question is, what was his mood when the quail stepped on his head? It was irritable, right? And the next question is, what was the old quail worried about when he heard one quail scolding the other? He knew that they wouldn't work together to raise up the net and to escape. The last question is, why did some of the quails get caught? One quail was scolding the other, and that upset and irritated the other quails around them, so they weren't paying attention and they didn't want to help each other. The Buddha taught that a person should guard himself against speaking with irritability. He should control his speech. Giving up misbehavior in speaking, he should practice good conduct in speaking. The wise control their actions, their speech, and their thoughts. Okay, let's talk about what we learned from the story and from what the Buddha taught. Now, even though the quails had the wise advice of the old quail of how to escape the hunter, several of them got caught. And why was that? It's because one quail wanted to complain and scold the other, and this upset and irritated all the birds around them, so they couldn't think clearly. They got angry and they didn't want to help each other. The quail who was scolding was irritable and only cared about his own pain. Even though he was being inconsiderate, scolding and insulting, he accused the other quail of not being inconsiderate. He should have been more tolerant. He was being intolerant or not tolerant, which means not accepting the situation and letting others know that you don't like it. It means when you don't like something or you don't like what someone says or does, you criticize or accuse or shout or complain or say unkind words, and this annoys everyone around you. Sometimes it's not the words you say, but the way you say it. For example, raising your voice or having a bossy or arrogant tone of voice or whining or an angry expression on your face that shows you're intolerant. So what does being tolerant mean? It means that when you don't like something, when something's unpleasant, you still keep calm. You don't look angry, but you speak politely and control your speech, as the Buddha taught us. Can you think of a time when something was unpleasant and you were very tolerant anyway and you didn't complain? Or can you think of a time when you were not very tolerant? Now, there are some times when we should not be tolerant of misbehavior. We can politely tell someone to stop doing something that's wrong, or not to do something that's annoying others or upsetting others. Or we can calmly and politely let someone know that they're annoying us. And we can use a firm tone of voice if they're not listening. But we shouldn't shout and upset others like the quail did in the story. Unless someone's about to do something that's very wrong, where someone might really get hurt, then we can shout to protect him or her. Now, there are many times when we should be tolerant, but we're not, like when we're feeling irritable, or we're in a bad mood, or feeling tired, or hungry, or sick, having a bad day, or a friend having disappointed us. When we feel irritable, we just want to feel better, we want to feel comfortable, so we might shout at someone to be quiet or get out of the way. We might make an angry face at someone. We may be impatient or angry toward a brother or sister or someone in our family or a friend, the people who are closest to us. But do they deserve that? Do we really want to annoy everyone around us? Another type of intolerance is when we insist on having something our way and we don't consider what others want. Can you remember a time when you thought your idea was the best and you didn't want to listen to somebody else's idea? Especially when we're feeling irritable, we might think that if we make others do what we want, then we'll feel better. Yeah, we might feel satisfied for a little while when we get our way, and we see our parents making us do what they want us to do, so we might think that we can do that too. But our parents are older and more experienced and have more knowledge, and they're trying to do what's best for their children, teaching and guiding them. So that's no excuse for you to push others to do what you want. Some people have a bad habit of forcing others to do what they want, and they're often called control freaks or bullies. But they're not really happy. They annoy others, so people want to get away from them. So we don't want to be like that. And anyway, it's good to listen to the ideas of others. We very often learn from them. We might find that their idea is better after all. The world is interesting because people have so many different ideas. We wouldn't want to live in a world where everyone is just like us, agreeing with everything that we think. So, tolerance and accepting other people's ideas makes us able to enjoy and learn from other people. And we all feel irritable sometimes. There are times when we get more easily annoyed than usual. Then it's harder to have self-control, to hold back our anger and our desire to have things our way. But we should just notice when we're annoyed and remind ourselves to be tolerant and avoid making others around us upset. And the more often we do that, the more likely we are to be tolerant, and the more often we're being tolerant, the more we learn to stay peaceful and tolerant in many different situations. And then good people will appreciate us more. By being peaceful, kind, and tolerant, we attract good friends. So let's wish that all beings be happy and peaceful.